Oi! Yes. What's going on, everybody? It's a new week. We're past UFC 266. It's time for UFC Vegas 38. Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker. Not the beverage, man. The fighter. This is going to be a good one, you guys. And we've got a really good fight on this card that we're going to go balls deep into the stats in. And that is going to be the Jared Gordon versus Joe Solecki fight. This is going to be a really good one and very interesting stylistic matchup. I can't wait to take you through all the stats in this one. We got Kales the Parachute in the room with us saying, dude, before this starts, I wanted to let you know UFC bets are now my main source of income, and you are one of my treasure troves of information. I appreciate that, Kales. Let's keep making this money. Let's keep that money train rolling. I know last week was a really good week for just about everybody that was betting. Pretty much all the favorites came through. So unless you were a major contrarian or unless you had some reads that were a lot different than everybody else's, you probably did really well this week. But it's a whole new week. We got a whole lot of work to do. So we're going to get into these stats. And she says, keep doing the Lord's work. Well, I'm going to keep working for Ja. I'm going to keep working for you guys. And I'm going to keep working for myself, because the more research that I do for you guys, the better bets I make. So I can't wait to get into the stats with you guys. I'm going to share my screen here and see if my co-host, Mr. Smooth Jimmy Apollo, is ready to go here. And let's see what he has to say. Let's see. Oh, yep. Smooth is definitely ready, you guys. That means it's time to go balls deep into the stats and start like we always do with the tail of the tape. So let's get into the numbers, y'all. So we have got Joe Solecki here at 28 years of age, Jared Gordon 5 years older at the age of 33. Both of these guys are 5'9". We're going to have a 2-inch reach advantage on the Solecki side. Both of these guys fighting out of the orthodox stance. We got Jared Gordon training out of Sanford MMA, as far as I know, and we have got Joe Solecki training out of Jimmo. Both of these guys Americans. Now, we've got Jared Gordon, 21 pro fights. We have got Joe Solecki with 13. We've got a 17-4 record for Gordon, 11-2 for Solecki, but we've got a major experience advantage in terms of minutes here, as over 150 more minutes in the cage for Jared Gordon here. Jared Gordon, a 10-year career, while for Solecki, it's just under 5. So if we look at who's been more active here, about 2 fights a year for Jared Gordon, while it's been almost 3 fights a year for Joe Solecki. Definitely been a little more active, has Solecki here. Now, Jared Gordon, twice as many UFC fights as Joe Solecki. Gordon is 5-3 thus far in the UFC, and Joe Solecki is 4-0. About 50 more minutes in the UFC cage for Jared Gordon. Average fight time for these guys right around 10 minutes for both of them. When we look at the finish stats, we're going to see that Joe Solecki is finishing his fights via submission most of the time. 64% finish rate via submission, 9% via knockout. While for Jared Gordon, it's 12% by submission, 35% by knockout, for a 47% finish rate overall. That's 8 out of his 17 professional wins for Jared Gordon coming inside the distance, and 1 of his 5 UFC wins coming by way of knockout. I believe that was the debut against Michel Quinones. He really put it on Michel. Definitely just outworked him, outgrappled him, and got him down on the ground and beat the hell out of him. But other than that, the other 4 wins have all been decision wins. While Joe Solecki has finished 2 of his 4 UFC wins via submission, the other 2 came by way of decision. Joe Solecki has been knocked out in 1 of his 2 losses. It was by Nick Mata, who was supposed to make his debut against Jim Miller last week. And then we've got Jared Gordon in his 4 losses. All of them have been finished inside the distance, all of them by knockout. So this is definitely a situation where we've got 6 pro losses and 5 of them have come inside the distance. And I've always said, and we talk about this on Stat Diggers all the time, that I feel that if you combine the losses amongst the 2 competitors and use that percentage to cap whether the fight goes to decision or not, it's probably more accurate than the winning percentages, because what the winning percentages don't tell as much about is the toughness of the opponent. And sometimes you see guys who are finishers on the regional scene, then they come up to the UFC, and it's much more difficult to finish higher level opponents, guys that won't just go away the first second that the fight gets a little bit tough. So both of these guys, though, 5 out of 6 losses coming inside the distance when you combine that. So that's an 83% implied probability of a finish if you handicap the fight doesn't go to decision line using that statistic. So that could be interesting here. We'll take a look at the lines as we get a little further into this. And it looks like we got Brian Fusco in the chat here. Fusco, never really exactly know how to say that, but he's saying you're the best. Thank you, Brian, for hanging out with us for a Balls Deep breakdown. Wouldn't be the same unless I got to chat a little bit with you guys while we go over these numbers. Also got my man JSJ23 in the room. What up, Weezy? This fight makes my head hurt. Well, let's hope we can get into these stats, find some angles for you that will not make your head hurt and will make the bookies hurt by you taking their money. So let's see here. We've got the striking stats, you guys. Let's have a look-see. We've got Joe Solecki landing 2.68 significant strikes a minute here, and he is only absorbing 0.85. So definitely he's been fantastic defensively. Most of his fights taking place in control time positions, and because of that, people aren't really hitting Joe Solecki at all. And if we look at Jared Gordon, we're going to see much more in the way of volume here, as he's landing 5.54 significant strikes a minute, only absorbing 3.22. So Gordon's got a 56% accuracy, Solecki a 66% accuracy. And if we look at the striking defense, it's really great for both of them. 58.44% for Solecki and 60.43% for Gordon. Joe Solecki's never been knocked down and never knocked anybody down. And Jared Gordon has never knocked anybody down, and he's been knocked down 2 times in 275 significant strikes absorbed. So that's a 0.73% knockdowns per total significant strikes absorbed. So that averages out to 0.35 knockdowns absorbed per 15 minutes for Gordon. Gordon kind of has become, he's gotten a reputation for being chinny. And that's because all 4 of his pro losses have come inside the distance. Well, 3 of the 4 inside the distance. And then as far as I could tell, it looked like a retirement at the end of round 3. So I don't know if that was a 5-round fight where it was a doctor stoppage after round 3, or if it was one of those weird situations where, the fight just gets stopped in the last second. But yeah, Jared Gordon, all 4 of his losses have been by knockout. So if we look into the grappling statistics here, I think this is where we're going to kind of figure out who's going to win this fight. You guys, Joe Solecki is controlling about 70% of Joe Solecki's UFC experience is taking place in control time positions. And for Gordon, it's 53%. So neither one of these guys is even spending half of their UFC cage time striking at distance. So if we can kind of handicap who's going to get the better of the grappling here, I think we're going to get an idea of who's going to win this fight. So we see that Joe Solecki has been very efficient with his wrestling. He's gotten 6 of 12 takedown attempts, 50% accuracy. He's averaging 2.39 takedowns per 15 minutes and 0.8 submission attempts per 15 minutes. And he's averaging 65% control time. Now, Gordon, his wrestling numbers are fantastic in their own right. So if we see that Solecki's got 4 fights, so he's averaging 3 takedown attempts per fight. But Jared Gordon has got 41 takedown attempts in 8 fights. So Jared Gordon is actually attempting more takedowns per fight than Joe Solecki is. Gordon, 5.2 takedown attempts per fight. He's gotten 16 of them. He's getting his takedowns at a 39% efficiency, which is very good as well. 2.81 takedowns per 15 minutes. So he's averaging about 0.42 more takedowns per 15 minutes than Solecki is. No submission attempts thus far in the UFC for Jared Gordon, but Jared Gordon's out controlling his opponents at a very impressive rate as well in a bigger sample size, 48.51% to 5.44%. So yeah, Jared Gordon has taken his opponents down 16 times. Jared Gordon's opponents have only gotten him down 4 times. But here's the problem. 8 fights for Gordon, 9 takedown attempts, but they've been successful 4 times. So he's only showing a 55% takedown defense is Jared Gordon. 0.7 takedowns absorbed per 15 minutes and 0.88 submission attempts against him per 15 minutes. But both of these guys being controlled by their opponents less than 6% of their UFC careers. Even more impressive for Gordon because it's in twice as much of a sample size, at least in terms of fights. So yeah, this is going to be the real key to the fight here. Now, one thing that we have to mention is that Jared Gordon has been bouncing back and forth between 155 and 145 pounds in his career. So let's take a look, you guys, at these advanced statistics, and let's kind of get into the numbers here for who these guys have fought and how they've fared. So these are Joe Solecki's numbers that I got up on the screen right here. We see the James Wallace fight on the Contender Series. We see Matt Wyman, Austin Hubbard, and Jim Miller. And one thing I need to alert you guys to is that my control time numbers are incomplete for Joe Solecki because control time numbers are not even available here because it was a Contender Series fight and they weren't keeping that stat during that season of the Contender Series. So while it's showing Joe Solecki with 65% control time, chances are he's got even more than that because he did get a takedown in that fight in an advanced position 5 times and locked up a sub. So out of those 229 seconds of cage time, he might have had at least 150 seconds of cage or control time, which means that Joe Solecki's total control time percentage could be over 70%. Hell, it could be over 75%. He's been dominant in the grappling exchanges, absolutely dominant. And unlike Jared Gordon, when he gets it to the grappling where he wants it, he gets submissions. He submitted Austin Hubbard without even getting a takedown. He simply just got to his back, backpacked him, worked it, and then got the rear naked choke while he was on his back. So Joe Solecki, very dangerous, very, very dangerous in the grappling exchanges. And usually when he takes you down, you don't get back up. He's a guy that really works well with his, he's a position over submission guy. But if you allow him on top of you for too long, he can eventually find that submission. And Jared Gordon, on the other hand, is also very excellent in terms of having position over submission, and he's very good in the scrambles as well. Even in his 155-pound fight against Dan Moret, we definitely saw Gordon get the better of the scrambles. We definitely saw Gordon, when the fight went to the grappling exchanges, stay on top for longer periods of time. Dan Moret was trying to get submissions, whether he was on his back or whether he was in control. He slid off the back a couple of times trying to get rear naked chokes, got Gordon's back a couple of times, but Gordon's submission defense was excellent in that fight. And he showed some really good grappling chops of his own. And that's the one fight that I watched at 155 pounds, because other than that, Gordon hasn't really fared that well there. And we see that, this is big time control numbers here. 749 out of 900 seconds of control time, 157 seconds out of 231 seconds of control time, and 563 seconds of control time out of 900 seconds against Jim Miller, one of the most accomplished, well-credentialed grapplers that the UFC lightweight division has seen. The most tenured member right now, the most fights in the UFC lightweight division, according to my stats, is Jim Miller. And that's his latest win. One takedown, and only one takedown and no reverses against the great Jim Miller. This guy got more than half of the fight in control time. Solecki did against him. And Jim Miller did not get any takedowns. And he held Jim Miller to only 11 strikes. And that's another thing, dude. Look at these 4 fights. And remember, 2 of these fights went the distance. And Joe Solecki is absorbing 11 significant strikes, 9 significant strikes, 10 significant strikes, and 2 significant strikes. He has only absorbed 32 significant strikes in his entire UFC career. You guys, that's 4 fights. Joe Solecki uses his grappling extremely well so that he doesn't have to absorb damage, so that he's sticking to his opponents, and he is very good at it. I think he's probably better than Gordon at it. However, this is going to be one of those steps up. But I don't think Gordon is a better grappler than Jim Miller. So that's the problem that I'm seeing here, you guys, is that um, we know how good Joe Solecki is on the ground, and he's already proved that against a guy like Austin Hubbard, for instance. Austin Hubbard, was in there with Mark Madsen. Austin Hubbard was in there with Davy Ramos, a former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. And Davy Ramos didn't submit Austin Hubbard, but Joe Solecki did. And as a matter of fact, like, I think Davy Ramos took down Austin Hubbard like 6 times. You know, Solecki subbed Hubbard without even having to take him down once. That's how good Solecki's grappling is. But let's look at Gordon here too, because we got a good sample size here. Now, the wins are not impressive. I'm having a problem with the wins here for Gordon. The wins, one at 104, 3 of his 5 wins are at 145 pounds. And the combined records of those 3 guys at 145 pounds that he beat were 2 wins and 6 losses. And then in the 155-pound wins that he got over Hakran Diaz by unanimous decision and by Dan Moret over unanimous decision, the combined records of those 2 guys, 3 wins, 8 losses. If you combine up the records of the guys that Jared Gordon has beat, we're looking at 5 wins and 14 losses. So not really a signature win yet here for Jared Gordon in his 8 UFC fights, as he's got wins over Danny Chavez, Chris Fishgold, Dan Moret, Hakran Diaz, and Michelle Quinones. But if we look at the control time numbers here, we actually see basically he's doing the same thing that Joe Solecki's doing. So if you're one of these people that's on Gordon, you can hang your hat on the same strengths that the people that are on Solecki are hanging their hat on, because 367 seconds of control time against Chavez, only 10 yielded. 622 seconds of control time against Fishgold, only 43 yielded. This fight, he lost in the first round, so not much there with control time. Oliveira, he outcontrolled Charles Oliveira 584 to 130, but we all know how good Charles Oliveira is on the ground. So yeah, he actually lost that, but he lost that by decision. Or I'm sorry, wait, no, that was the Dan Moret fight. So he outcontrolled Dan Moret 584 to 130, and that was because he was happy to just kind of grind it out. He favored position over submission. I'm referring to Gordon here. While when Moret was getting himself into control time situations, he was actively looking for the finish, got a little bit sloppy, and he got reversed a couple times in this fight. So you can see the takedown numbers here for Jared Gordon: 2 for 7, 3 for 6, 2 for 6, 3 for 8, 0 for 1, 2 for 7, and 4 for 6 for 16 out of 41. And he's advanced position 20 times with those 16 takedowns. So he's been very good in his own right on the ground. And he also has 2 reverses here. But if we look at the takedown defense, see, 0 for 3. Hakran Diaz was 0 for 3. But then look here, 1 for 1 allowed, 2 for 2 allowed against Moret. 0 for 1, 0 for 1, 1 for 1. So I'm interested to see how the takedown defense holds up, because he's had takedowns attempted against him in 6 fights, but he's been taken down in 3 of those 6 fights. And in those fights, those guys got every takedown that they attempted. So the most recent fight here against Danny Chavez, Chavez was 1 for 1. Dan Moret was 2 for 2, and Joaquim Silva was 1 for 1. So yeah, you can win minutes and win rounds by getting on top of Gordon. He's got good jiu-jitsu defense, but if you don't just get sloppy and try to submit him immediately, you can be the one working over Gordon, because he's going to be a little bit smaller than he's used to being here up at 155 rather than what he was at 145 when he was missing weight and kind of weight bullying guys. We could see up at 155 when guys like Moret and wanted to take him down, they were 100%. So this is going to be interesting here. It's going to be interesting to see who gets on top first. And we know that Gordon shoots for more takedowns per fight than Solecki does, but I'm not even sure if that's where Gordon wants this fight. Gordon might want to keep this fight. He might want to keep this fight standing. That might be where he thinks he has the best chance, because Joe Solecki's got serviceable striking, but without question, if you're gonna say what's Solecki's strong point, it's the grappling. It's not the striking. So he might want to avoid the striking, try to keep the fight standing, in which case it'll be Solecki shooting for the takedowns. And I think that Solecki will be able to stay safe on top. So let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. I've been talking too much. So let's see here. We got Hammer and Hog, my guy in the room. Morning to the Goat Capper. Told you I would make time for the live, and I am here. When is just the tip? Turning on notifications for when you go live. I appreciate that. And yeah, you guys, if you haven't liked the videos, you haven't subscribed to them yet, hell, like them, subscribe. It's free. It helps me out. Helps guys like Hammer and Hog who want to see my subscriber numbers go up. Helps him out too. And I'm helping out Hammering Hog by giving him greasy 4-leg parlays every week on Just the Tip. And Just the Tip will be happening at 10 o'clock tonight Central Time. So the Contender Series starts at 7 p.m. Central Time. I always like to allow 3 hours for the Contender Series to finish, and then I'll go live for Just the Tip. So I'll be going live 3 hours after the Contender Series starts tonight, whatever time zone you're in, for Just the Tip afterwards. And we will do a full card breakdown for this UFC Vegas 38 card. Big up yourself, Hammer and Hog. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. And UFC Betting Experience saying Gordon is a 145er and his game is to grapple fuck a better grappler, not to mention his chin. Yeah, and the chin is a problem here, and we went over that number when we looked at the striking stats, you know. All 4 of his losses coming by way of knockouts. So, and you know what? I do want to look at something here, because if we look at Jared Gordon's Tapology page here, there was this fight against Jeff Lentz, and it says doctor stoppage 5 minutes round 3. So I gotta assume that's a 5-round fight. Yeah, 5-minute rounds. So it must have been. It was for the featherweight championship. So he lost to Jeff Lentz, but this is back in 2015, so we can't look too much into that. And he comes back off of that fight and gets a head kick knockout in round 1 over Anthony Morrison, and then he gets a rear naked choke in round 2 against Dewan Pickney, 10-5, and then a big win over Bill Algeo, one of my favorite fighters, a really exciting fighter here in CFFC. A unanimous decision win. That was at the beginning of 2017, and that's what launched him into the UFC. He goes on a 2-fight win streak here against Quinones and Diaz, and then gets a really tough opponent in Diego Ferreira, gets knocked out in the first round, gets knocked out in the third round by Joaquim Silva. A unanimous decision win over Dan Moret. I just got done watching that fight. Felt like Moret won the first, and I definitely think that Moret won the first half of the second, but then Gordon reversed Moret, won the second half of the second, and in my opinion, Gordon won that second round. And then what was funny was Moret's corner. I believe Moret is he's with Eddie Shaw and Santino DeFranco over there at Fight Ready, and they told him, look, Dan, whatever you do, you keep this fight standing. You don't want this guy Gordon on top of you. You're longer than him. You're a better striker than him. Whatever you do, don't go to your back. And Dan Moret comes out there and 10 seconds into the round, shoots for a guillotine, pulls guard, and winds up pretty much spending the rest of the next 3 minutes on his back, losing that round. Really bad decision-making there by Dan Moret. But that was a very close fight. But that was Gordon deserved to win that. A loss against the champion, Charles Oliveira. We can throw that out. This, Solecki is not quite on Charles Oliveira's level just yet. We got Chris Fishgold win, unanimous decision, and then a unanimous decision win over Danny Chavez. So, yeah, we've got a decent, a really good strength of schedule here. 8 UFC fights. The wins aren't spectacular, but the losses are against legit competition. Diego Ferreira and Charles Oliveira and Joaquim Silva, who's also got a winning record in the UFC. So this is good competition that he's losing to. And if we go to Solecki here, I'll just take you through his strength of schedule here. We'll see he's been fighting. In the UFC, we got the Contender Series fight here against Jimmy Wallace. He wins that via guillotine in the first. Matt Wyman, unanimous decision win. He grapple fucked Matt Wyman, and Matt Wyman was furious about it. A rear naked choke win after backpacking Austin Hubbard for about 3 minutes, and then a unanimous decision win here over Jim Miller. He was a minus 245 favorite against a great grappler like Jim Miller, and he's only a minus 140 favorite against a decent grappler who's really more of a 145er in Jared Gordon here. I just think it's such a good value. I mean, if he's minus 245 against Miller, why is he minus 140 against Gordon? Are the bookies really that high on Jared Gordon? Jared Gordon, whose best win was what? I mean, who is the best win for Gordon? Hakron Diaz, 3-5. An old Hakron Diaz. He fought him in 2017. Hakron Diaz is born in 84. So at that point, Hakron Diaz was already 34 years old. So I don't know, man. This is not a difficult spot, in my opinion, for a guy that just outgrappled Jim Miller, outcontrolled him 563 seconds to 123 seconds. Beat a Jim Miller that's 21-15 in the UFC, one of the most well-tested veterans. I like the UFC wins better. I think Austin Hubbard, Jim Miller are both better than Hakron Diaz as a win. Definitely better than Fishgold and the other guys. What was it? Fishgold, Chavez, Moretz 0-3, Quinones 0-2, who's a pure striker. So, yeah, I'm liking my guy Joe Solecki here quite a bit. So I'm agreeing with UFC betting experience there. We got Hammer and Hog saying, and I need our four-legger to be greasy this week. No pussy -5, 1,500 Valentina legs. How dare you, Hammering Hog? She didn't go to -1,500 until Uncle Weezy said that I liked Valentina Shevchenko. I think she was at like -1,475. Then I said I was on Shevchenko, and the rocket shoots her up to -1,500, and that's where I had to take her. But I predicted that she would win that fight, and I came out on top. So that's all that matters. And Juan Carlos saying, are there locks for this Saturday? There were, I never use the word lock, Juan Carlos. This is fighting. Anything can happen. So, yeah, no locks. When we do just the tip tonight at 10 o'clock, I'm going to go through all 13 of these fights. At the end of it, I'm going to give you my best lock, which is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And I haven't picked it yet, but I have an inkling who I am going to pick here. There is one fighter that I like quite a bit. But, locks. Carol Rosa is got a really good shot of beating the washed-up Betch Correa at this point, who's 38 years old. I think that well, you know what? We'll get into that tonight. Juan Carlos. But yeah, no locks on this card. There's no Alexander Hernandez is the biggest favorite on this card. He's -500 right now, and he's taking on Mike Breeden on short notice, who's super tough and is pretty well rounded. So, I'm not going to be touching that fight, but that's probably the best chance of winning this week is probably Hernandez. And did the last greasy 4-leg parlay hit? Yeah, it hit. I mean, I'm not going to break my arm patting myself on the back with as many favorites as there were last week that came through, but the greasy 4-legger did hit. It was Chris Daukaus, Valentina Shevchenko, Taylor Santos, and the fight doesn't go to decision for Medic Turner. So it cashed beautifully. There we weren't even nervous at any point of any of those 4 legs. So and that was a plus 200 parlay. So not bad it wasn't that greasy, but it hit. Juan Carlos saying this card that is coming, I see it really bad for a betting perspective. Well, It's as bad as your picks. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. It's the UFC. We get a lot of variance with these fights. So, it's about bankroll management. It's about making the highs not too high and the lows not too low. Stay in that meaty part of the curve. Um, Pick the, bet the most money on the spot that you have the biggest edges on, in your opinion, and just try to over the long haul stack those winning tickets like flapjacks and make some money in that account. And then UFC Betting Experience saying Jim round one is so much better than Gordon and Joe reverse Jim in round one. I don't know what that means, my man. You're going to need to clarify that for me. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. This is a great fight. Yeah, man. I think it was Payne Fight Picks that said, you wanted to see this one as a balls deep breakdown. So this one's going out to you, Payne. Big ups. We got Grayson saying, I'm taping this fight right now. Perfect timing. And Val Duar giving us his own greasy four-legger. He's going with Solecki, Price, Hosa, and O'Neal. I like it. I like that. Hammering Hog saying, you've gotten more than 500 subs in just over a month. You are a stud. Keep winning, and of course you will grow. I appreciate that, Hammering Hog. Yeah, I've got almost 600 subs to the channel, and I really appreciate that. I'm blown away. And I've been doing this probably since May, so it's been about 4 good months of work here. But I'm trying to be here every week. I'm trying to be consistent and give you guys content every single week. I do a lot of research. I put a lot of work into giving these numbers out there to you guys, making them available every week. It's a lot of work getting it done, but the amount of love that you guys have been showing me, a lot of the other content creators that I have a ton of respect for have been asking me to come on their shows. Hey, shout out Sun Tzu and Brett Apley for having me on Creating Alpha on Friday. That was just a huge honor for me. Those are the first guys I ever saw do MMA DraftKings content on the web. So to be on their show on Friday was a huge, huge honor. Shout out my guy Clint on Pub Sports Radio, the Die Hard MMA podcast. I made my debut there yesterday. It had such a great time chopping up all 13 fights with Clint, and being on his show was just a huge milestone for me as well. I'm working with a guy that I have a ton of respect for in DFS by the Numbers, doing main event breakdowns on his channel every week, doing stat diggers with him on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday night, doing the DraftKings show every 6 p.m. Central Time every Tuesday, which we'll be going live for in about 2 hours to talk DraftKings DFS for this UFC Vegas 38 card. So yeah, it's been amazing how much the channel has been growing. I have been working hard and I've been putting out a lot of content, but I couldn't be doing it without you guys and your support. All these stats, I always make them free. Look in the description of this video, you guys. You can download the stats that we're looking at right here on your Uncle Weezy. Picks on Dana White Contender Series, guys. I don't have any picks on this. Talk to my guy Z's MMA. He's the one that's going to be usually having good picks for some of the lower level cards. I don't have time to do that with all the content that I do, all the database management that I do, and all the data entry. There really isn't time for me to do tape study on some of the lower level cards and the Contender Series cards. So I leave that to guys like Z's, guys like Narco Cop. Usually those guys have incredible reads on the lower level MMA. And if you're looking for reads on the internet to go check out Narco Cop, check out my guy Z's MMA. We got Kikai Akagi saying, let's go, Uncle Weezy. Last card was sweet. Let's make that cheddar again. Yeah, it was a great card, man. Great fights, great opportunities. We had some good reads. I didn't get too greedy, but I hit my bets last week, 5 out of 6. The only one that didn't cash was Marais round 1. It was so close. Mr. X saying, Solecki is the square trap of the week. He has no wrestling, plays guard, and beat up Matt Wyman, who made Jordan Levitt look good, and a Lyme disease crippled Jim Miller. Okay, well, get in there and get that bet on your guy, Jared Gordon, and see how that works out for you, man, because Gordon has got 8 UFC fights. He's got twice as many UFC fights as Solecki does. He's definitely he's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He has really good top control. He's got fantastic conditioning. A little bit undersized for 155, but if that's what you feel, and if you feel that the people that are on Solecki are square, get in there, make that 5-unit max bet, and then laugh all the way to the bank when you cash it, Mr. X. And we've got Jared Gordon has a ground and pound tutorial you can buy online, but he's about to put on a clinic for free. Gordon has improved since getting to Sanford MMA. Yes, sir. Sanford, one of the best camps in the entire country. Yeah, he could be making improvements even at the age of 33 here. But I think at this point of both of their careers, Jared Gordon, having been scarily knocked out 3 different times, kind of chinny. So that's not a good thing. And then you look at the fact that he's died twice from heroin overdoses is not good for longevity. I don't like the fact that he's getting older here. I think Joe Solecki's kind of coming into his own. And yeah, I'm on Solecki here. I've already bet him. I'm 2 units deep. If that makes me a square, it makes me a square. We got King Bicky saying fight of the night against Joaquim Silva. Joaquim Silva always brings it, man. Mr. X saying Gordon and Solecki are the same height. Solecki isn't a big lightweight. And we got Hammering Hog saying he is so great. He is literally cashing all of us 4-leggers. Yeah, last week, like I said, I'm not going to break my arm patting myself on the back hitting a 4-legger last week. There were people hitting like 16-leggers last week. All those favorites are coming through, man. But yeah, we'll take them one at a time. If they cash, they cash. And I'm going to give you another 4-legger this week on Just the Tip, Hammer and Hog. We got Juan Carlos saying, I know 90% I will watch. Attaboy, Juan Carlos. Appreciate it, man. Just the Tip. That's right. And let's see here. We've got Casey O'Neill. Grayson's going to be hammering Casey O'Neill here. And I don't have a problem with that, man. Shevchenko is just so mercurial with the grappling. You know, she'll look good against lower level grapplers like she got Lipsky and she got Pudilova. But then when it was Andrea Lee and Modafferi and Chukagian, she was out there just getting bodied. And Casey O'Neill has looked really good. And we got Hammer and Hog saying Weezy is a machine. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. UFC betting experience. Jim took Joe down and Joe reversed him. Oh, yeah. So Jim Miller took Joe Solecki down. Joe Solecki reversed him and got top control in round 1 when Jim was still fresh. Yeah, Solecki's grappling is fantastic. Yes, he will play guard. And I've seen him get reversed. But 2 out of the 3 times I've seen him get reversed, he's won via submission. He got reversed twice in the Jacob Bone fight, but he showed an active guard. He won the first round with his striking in that fight. In the Patricino fight, he gets reversed, immediately locks up a triangle, gets slammed, locks it in tighter, mounts and finishes. It was absolutely perfect. And in the Wallace fight, he gets reversed and immediately locks up a guillotine, and then he mounts it again. So not only did he lock up a triangle from the bottom, but then he mounted his opponent there. That was in the Patricino fight. And then in the Wallace fight on the Contender Series, he got reversed. But when he gave up that reverse, he locked up the guillotine. Once that guillotine was in, he used the guillotine to mount his opponent, finishes beautifully. And then against Hubbard, he caught a kick, pulled him in, got double underhooks, pushed him against the fence, and shot for a single leg. And then he did not finish the single leg, but he did get to the back and backpacked him. So Mr. X, who feels that Jared Gordon, who has never subbed anybody in the UFC, despite the fact that he's got 5 UFC wins, if you think that your guy's going to be out grappling Joe Solecki, I got a feeling you're going to be disappointed. I got a feeling you're going to be disappointed here. I think you're off on that one. And we got Juan Carlos saying any lock for Dana White. I do not know. I know one of the biggest favorites pulled out, so that's a shame. That what sent me here. What book are you guys using for the Contender Series? I'm on FanDuel and DraftKings and don't see any action on them. So for the Contender Series, there's 14 props on this year. Oh, yeah. It looks like DraftKings doesn't have anything. I think you're going to need to be on 5 Dimes, on Bet Online, on William Hill, or on Betway. That's where you're going to need to go, JL. We got Grayson. Wow, I didn't realize the spreadsheets were free. Uncle Weezy out here creating massive value. Hey, man, you guys, I appreciate the value that you guys bring by showing up to my live streams, by interacting with me. That's what makes these things better. Even when we disagree, talking these things out, uh, putting our opinions out there, whether they're in favor of what I'm saying or whether they're, in direct opposition to what I'm saying, we have to hash out all the information here. UFC betting experience saying, I like Kyle plus 125 or Lucas plus Rizvan Almeida plus 200, worth a sprinkle, my bets for tonight. Thank you, UFC betting experience, because I cannot help you there, my man. I did not go over these fights at all. We got King Bicky saying, I like Solecki having the reach advantage in the grappling department. Oops, I just screwed that up. My fault. Yeah, he does have a 2-inch reach advantage in this fight. And we got Mr. X saying Solecki fought bums on the regional scene and is a jiu-jitsu coach for kids at a regional gym, not a real UFC fighter. Yeah, I mean, like the real UFC fighters, usually you want them to have like a 4-5-3 record, like Jared Gordon does, and a 4-11 combined record of opponents instead of Joe Solecki, who's 4-0. Usually it's the 4-0 UFC fighters that really suck, Mr. X. It's curious how all the sharps are on Gordon and the public loves Solecki, but the line is even. An even line means it's 115 on each side, Mr. X. In this case, we've got a line that has Joe Solecki as minus 138 and Jared Gordon plus 126. So there's a little bit of an arbitrage opportunity here. Here on Bet Online, we got minus 123, and we've got plus 126 for Jared Gordon on FanDuel. So there's definitely some disagreement on this fight. It seems like certain books, there's a ton of money coming in on Solecki, and then on other books, there's a ton of money coming in on Gordon. So this is definitely one of the fights that seems to be a little bit more contentious. And one of the fights that I'm seeing on Twitter that people are really talking about is Holland against Dawkins, because people think that Holland's going to knock out Dawkins, and then the Dawkins crowd thinks that Holland's wrestling hasn't improved enough to stay off his back. And people are, really kind of throwing a lot of shade out there. That's going to be a really fun one. And let's see here. Juan Carlos saying, I had Chris Duncan big tonight, but his oval pull out. Yeah, he pulled out. I don't know what happened. There was some kind of a medical issue. Uncle Weezy is the fucking man, by the way. Thanks, Mr. X. Appreciate that, man. And we got Uncle Weezy. What do you think in the main event? I'm going to do a main event breakdown with my guy DFS by the numbers on his channel later on today at some point. I know that he's on his way back from Vegas and I think he flew in at like 3 a.m. So I'm not talking to him right now. I'm letting him rest up. So yeah, we're going to break that down. I talked about the main event with Clint on the Die Hard MMA podcast, and he definitely likes Walker. I'm leaning Walker, but I need to look into it more. I haven't looked at any tape there, so I don't want to give you guys a hot take yet. Daz Fire saying, Weezy, you're the best. Great job on Die Hard yesterday. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. That was so much fun being on Clint's show. It's one I've been wanting to do ever since I started doing this. So that was a real treat for me. I appreciate you watching. Clint, if you're listening, you're the man. Thank you for having me on your show. It was a huge honor. Juan Carlos saying Santos is not the same now. Yeah, I hear you. And then we got Mr. X saying he lost to Oliveira, Carlos Diego Ferreira at lightweight before we knew how good they both were. Yeah, well, those are absolute. I mean, you can't. I'm not even really considering those losses because, of course, he lost to Charles Oliveira. Guy's the lightweight champion. Diego Ferreira has one of the best. I mean, I don't know if I know he lost recently to Grant Dawson, but I think prior to that, he might have had like an 8-1, 9-1 record for Ferreira in the UFC. So yeah, absolutely legit losses. And also had a broken hand going into the Diego Ferreira fight. Yeah, that couldn't have helped. Great work, Uncle Weezy. You're the fucking man. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate that, man. And then thanks for the shout out on Twitter today. I really appreciate that. And Walker's a savage. Yes, he is. And we got Jack Attack in the room saying, what up, Weezy? Definitely got my eye on this one. Yeah, man, this is a great fight. And like I say, these are great fighters. Gordon, really good at what he does. And both of these guys are doing very similar things very well. So this is a great stylistic matchup. Let's see if that arbitrage opportunity is still there according to best fight odds. Oh no, FanDuel dropped Gordon to 116. And I got so Mr. X likes Gordon here, and I'm telling you, man, the money's coming in on Gordon right now. Look at this. The Gordon line opens up at minus 105, pops up immediately to about plus 145. And then money's just start steadily coming in here. And now we see it kind of nosediving because just on September 26th on Sunday, less than 48 hours ago, Gordon was about plus 128. Now on the aggregate, he's plus 111. And last night, I bet um, 2 units on Joe Solecki at minus 131 on Bet Online, and he's already down to minus 123. So shout out Clint, because he was saying we could wait to bet Solecki because he thought more money was going to come in on Gordon, and he was absolutely right. The money is flowing in on Gordon right now. So if you're, I don't know, if you're on the Gordon side, do you have to jump in now, or is this the bottom for Solecki, and we're going to see more money coming on Solecki? It's going to be interesting. There's reasons to like both of these fighters. But that's the way I'm seeing this one so far. So let's just get back to my little strength of schedule metrics, you guys, so you can see, and then we can finish off by looking at these lines. So Joe Solecki has got a 1.42 win-to-loss ratio amongst his opponents and 14.5 total fights, while for Jared Gordon, it's 1.38 and 7.13 total fights. So on the aggregate, Solecki fighting the slightly more experienced competition, but I think the Jim Miller fight kind of swayed that a little bit because Jim Miller is the most tenured man in the UFC right now with 36, 37 fights. If we look at the wins here, Solecki with a 1.42 ratio in his wins. The average guy that he beats has a record of 8.5 wins and 6 losses, while the guys that Jared Gordon are beating have a losing record with an average record of 1 win and 1.8 losses for a 0.56 ratio. And then Joe Solecki has never lost, so we don't have a ratio there. And then we've got Jared Gordon at 9.33 wins and 5 losses is the average record of the guy that's beating Jared Gordon. So Jared Gordon really only losing the top level competition. But right now, with Joe Solecki's UFC record sitting at 4-0, you might have to call Joe Solecki that kind of competition. A 4-win and no loss record is the kind of fighter that's beating him, but a little more experienced, obviously, with guys like Charlie Olives and Diego Ferreira having beaten this guy. So I'm picking Joe Solecki. I think he actually has a chance to submit Jared Gordon, but I would not bet it because Jared Gordon has never once been submitted in his career. And when Dan Moret had him in a couple of tight spots, Gordon showed really good submission defense, really good scrambling ability. This is not going to be an easy test for Joe Solecki. But then again, Jim Miller isn't an easy test either. It's just that I think that we're going to see Jared Gordon push the pace for 3 full rounds, which is something that we don't see out of Miller at this point in his career. But I think that Jared Gordon's best path to victory is going to be to keep more than half of this fight standing and hope that he's better on the feet striking-wise than Solecki is, and that he can, close the distance and make up that 2-inch reach disadvantage that he has. But Solecki's striking is serviceable, in my opinion. I think it'll be close on the feet, but I think if it goes to the ground, I think Solecki is going to have an advantage there. He's very comfortable on the ground, and I think he does better finishing fights and being very dangerous, while Gordon kind of, that's why we see him winning almost all of his fights via decision, is because he uses his grappling game and top control to win minutes and bank rounds, while Joe Solecki uses his top control more often, half the time to finish the fight and the other half time to win minutes and bank rounds. But they both can do that. I just think Solecki might be a little bit better at it. Let's see what you guys are saying here. King Bicky in the room saying Walker is in phenomenal shape. Look at his Instagram compared to Santos making babies. Big bags on Walker. Yeah, Walker's always in phenomenal shape. That dude's got an amazing physique. And so does the dude who's got the sledgehammer tattooed on his chest. My God, both of these guys are physical specimens. Juan Carlos saying, thank you much for the work, Uncle Weezy. You're the man. See you tonight. Just the tip. Appreciate you, Juan Carlos. We'll see you tonight, man. I'm looking forward to doing that with you guys. Mr. X saying Gordon will be the favorite. Gordon, the money's coming in on him. We'll see if it keeps flowing in, because if it does, it's going to make me look like an asshole for betting on Solecki at -131. We got Jack Attack saying, I'm surprised there is more money coming in on Gordon, but hey, I don't hate it on the Solecki end. Yeah, I hear you, man. Gordon's boxing since working with Henry Hooft is night and day. Yeah, well, he does make people better. Henry Hooft's a great striking coach for sure. I don't know if how much he's striking he's going to be able to do in this fight. Jack Attack saying Gordon relied heavily on control in the Chavez fight. It's difficult to see that it's difficult to see that type of strategy working out against Solecki. I agree with you there, Jack Attack. I am on Solecki here. I've lost a lot of money betting against Sanford MMA. That's my biggest reservation. Yeah. Well, you know what? I cashed a ticket betting against Sanford MMA, betting Jonathan Pierce last week, a guy who I think has really underrated grappling, a really underrated gas tank, pace, pressure, and just, the gas tank to push a hellacious pace on his opponents. And you saw what he did to Omar Morales there. The grappling game of Omar Morales had nothing for Jonathan Pierce. And that's what I'm hoping, that the grappling game of Jared Gordon will have nothing for Joe Solecki on the ground. And then we got Mr. X saying something about Danny Chavez. The Danny Chavez win is aged really well. Danny Chavez is the same size as Solecki, but more athletic. I think Danny Chavez beats Solecki at any weight personally. Wow. Yeah. Danny Chavez is a black belt, but I mean, if there was a grappling match between Joe Solecki and Danny Chavez, I'll tell you what, we'll just go half and half, Mr. X. I'll take Solecki, you take Chavez. How does that sound? Because I don't think Danny Chavez could hang at all with Joe Solecki on the ground. I think that would be an absolute murder. I think you made a lot of good points about Gordon, and I'm not disrespecting Gordon's game. I love people who wrestle. I love people who fight to their win condition, and that's something both Solecki and Gordon do. However, to think that Gordon's grappling game is there with Solecki, I think that's where you're missing the point, Mr. X. You're comparing guys like Danny Chavez and you're comparing guys like Danny Chavez to Joe Solecki in the grappling, and I'm sorry, man, they're not anywhere near each other. So and if you want to think that that's the case, we're going to have to just wait and see on Saturday. But, like I say, when we see Gordon dominating on guys like he did against Michel Canones, that's at 145 pounds. That's with a 4.5 pound weight miss. I just don't think that this is going to be Gordon's night. Anyway. And we got Bellator openers were really sharp today. Yeah, dude, I'll bet Mr. X that they're opening these lines a lot wider now. I mean, why let people get in? I mean, like, everybody's just looking to parlay Bellator favorites. So I think the books are going to kind of look at it in terms of, let's just open up these things a lot wider, make these people pay for their parlays. Chikara Penko plus 200, intriguing. Jack Attack saying Gordon weighed in heavy for the Chavez fight. Chavez said it played a role in the outcome. He said it wasn't the difference maker, but Solecki isn't going to be concerned about Gordon's grappling. Yeah, I agree. And we were talking about that. All the weight misses for Gordon, he tries to be a weight bully, but, these guys that he's out grappling are simply not on Solecki's level, man, at all. Let me see. UFC betting experience saying, oh, Christ. Why think Chavez is better grappler than Joe? Over 2.5 for this fight? No. Abu Dhabi says, I'm not touching the time props here because I think Solecki can get a submission against anybody. But I'm not counting on it because I think Gordon has excellent submission defense, and both these dudes are really tough. No quit in either of these guys. So I think over 2.5 is a pretty good bet. I don't know what the line is, but I personally won't be touching the time props. Jack Tech saying good call on JSP. That was a great spot. He looked like the favorite for sure. Man, he looked fantastic. I'm a huge fan of that dude. JSJ saying excellent analysis as always. Never get to see Just the Tip live because of UK timing, but looking forward to catching up tomorrow. I appreciate that, JSJ. Thanks for hanging out, man. Excuse me, guys. Oh, God. I'm talking too much. Chavez could keep it standing. He has good reactive hips, and it wasn't easy to get him down. Solecki doesn't have double or single leg shots. Dude, Joe Solecki's got 5 of his 10 takedown attempts in the UFC. What are you talking about? What is it? Like there are guys middling around with 30% takedown accuracy. Chris Dawkins' takedown accuracy is in the 20%, and people are like, oh, he's going to take Holland down. And then you got a guy like Solecki who's only attempted 10 takedowns in 4 fights, and he's gotten half of them. And it's like you're saying he doesn't have double or single legs. Then what are those 5 takedowns that he has? He's got a submission against Hubbard without even getting a fucking takedown. I don't understand what you're talking about, dude. Only crappy body locks and an old ass opponents. Dude, judo, the entire sport of judo is crappy body locks, and people have been doing it for centuries. Not on the ground. Solecki couldn't get Chavez down. They've never fought. And Chavez could light him up with calf kicks and punches at range. Yeah, Chavez is a real killer. They're a weight class apart. I don't think they're the same size. I don't think the grappling is particularly close. Yeah, neither do I. Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Mr. X as well. Just you think Solecki's a fraud. Okay. Mr. X, Joe Reverse. Yeah, and thoughts about the I don't know anything about Lima versus MVP. I love watching MVP fight, but I don't even know what the line is on that. Yeah. And then we got Jack Tech saying Davey Ramos is one of the most credentialed BJJ guys at 155, and he couldn't sub Hubbard, but Solecki went through him like a hot knife through butter. It's exactly what I said earlier. I mean, there's no way, dude. Jim Miller in his current form can barely walk up the stairs. The man is very sick from Lyme disease. The last Lima MVP fight went over 5 minutes and not a lot to go off. Don't care about Mr. X. You're the GOAT, Uncle Weezy. You guys are all the GOAT, and I appreciate you, Mr. X. You know what? It's really good to have somebody test your hypothesis because when we disagree, that's where we start to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of each fighter. We get a more complete look at the fight. So I appreciate you coming in here. I have no problem with any of you guys. If I'm on a fighter telling me, nah, dude, you're wrong. Here's what I think. So I appreciate you, Mr. X. I appreciate all of you that have been watching. We went through all these stats here. I'm not going to be hitting time props on this fight, but let's look at some of these props here on Bet Online. We've got Solecki inside the distance plus 285, Jared Gordon inside the distance plus 425, and the fight going to decision is minus 190. So the bookies definitely do see this going to the decision, probably about 64-65% of the time. Let's see. We got Joe Solecki by decision plus 150, Jared Gordon by decision plus 175. And then we've got some really hyped up props here that are really difficult to hit. So Solecki by submission plus 500. Those of you who are thinking of taking Solecki by submission, I would caution you that Jared Gordon is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. He's got a very good ground game. He's a great scrappler. He's got great submission defense. Showed it off in the Moret fight. I like Solecki by submission. I think there's a lot of value on that line, but Jared Gordon is no joke. And then we got Jared Gordon by knockout plus 700. Joe Solecki by knockout plus 850. Jared Gordon by submission plus 1100. A draw 6600. You guys, I do like the Joe Solecki money line. I bet 2 units on it, but I'm not touching any fight props. Maybe I'll throw a quarter unit on the Solecki by submission prop if it sticks up there around plus 500 and I'm feeling a little cheeky. But other than that, I think I'm going to end it there, you guys. I got some food I got to eat, and I am going on vacation tomorrow. I've got to appear live in 90 minutes on Pub Sports Radio to do my DraftKings show. And then after that, I'm going to be doing Just the Tip at 10 o'clock tonight. And then I got to pack and going down to Florida for vacation for 1 week. I will still be bringing my microphone and my web camera so I can still talk to you guys and do all the regular shows that I normally do. Thank you guys for hanging out on another episode of Balls Deep Breakdown. I appreciate each and every one of you guys spending the last hour with me. God bless each and every one of you. Check me out on Pub Sports Radio 90 minutes from now for the DraftKings DFS show. And then at 10 o'clock p.m. Central Time tonight for Just the Tip, where we will finish off with me giving you Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Thank you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm going to sign off for right now. I will see you later on today, and let's cash all these bets for UFC Vegas 38.